Wow, I really think this should be the main theme of Conquest of the Blue Planet. Welcome back to another chapter. Alright, last time, Cecil Harvey has just investigated the fallen regions in the Eastern Archipelago, such as Mithril, Fabul, and Mysidia, and they were all destroyed by the Injukhal. But unlike Mithril, however, Fabul and Mysidia were actually, barren. They were barren and empty because the Injukhal have actually managed a unique way to not only dominate the world, but also enslave and brainwash the people that live in these places, which is exactly the same thing that Cecil had went through, the same predicament, the same techniques. Because Young and the elders said that they had witnessed the disappearance of their promising disciples and whatnot, like the mages and the monks, and they've actually turned on their leaders, and so they worked for the Injukhal instead for world conquest. In addition, the water crystal was stolen by the Injukhal and their brainwashed people as well. But luckily the wind crystal was spared, and so was Yang. So was Yang, Sheila, Ursula, and the Grandmaster, the former Grandmaster. The Elder was cured by Cecil, but Palom and Porum were captured. They were abducted by the Injukhal and the brainwashed mages. And it turns out that the Glamour Greens are actually growing inside the enemy territory. Yeah. So, in order to save Rosa, Cecil has to set foot and face his deepest fears. Without getting brainwashed, of course. So, let's get this thing started. Alright, Chapter 3. I'm going to take a break from Cecil's point of view for a while. This is where Young and the others arrive at Baron and eventually deal with more of the Injukhal's plot. As Cecil was heading to Tenebre, Yang rendezvoused at the mighty kingdom of Baron. He also met the elder of Mysidia there as he listened in on his plight. The priest doing the same. Sheila holding Ursula and the monks settled in while the two were escorted into the royals' bedchambers. They were quite impressed of all the work Biggs, Wedge, and Sid made to the room for Cecil and Rosa's upcoming newborn. Then it was off to Rosa's personal quarters as she rested just as still and blanched as ever. Joanna and the white mages watched over her with despair and worry. "That poor lass!" And Cecil said the baby is still trapped inside her? Her mother simply nodded as she clearly was at a loss for words. Looking over her body as silent and as bleak as a grave, Young hoped that Cecil would get the Glamour Greens soon. Then there was an uproar outside of the tower. The Grand Master Monk decided to check it out while the Elder and eventually Sheila and Ursula stayed. Following the commotion to the main hall, a few dragoons in green armor were surrounding someone, along with a few of his monks. The one in the center was Kain? Obviously, the men couldn't be more exhilarated. "Kain!" Young cried with excitement. Despite the betrayal when he first met him, he did make up for his sins after he helped Cecil, Rosa, Edge, and Rydia defeat Zeromus. The final boss in the game. He faced him amongst the crowd. "Master Young, is it you?" "Yes, Kain. So what brings you here?" The commander answered he was growing tired of his training in Mount Ordeals. He has decided to take a brief break and reunite with his old friends and comrades again. He was going to leave in the morrow and return via Devil's Road, and he did notice that Mysidia was unusually quiet. Young explained of what the Injukhal were up to. Kain grew more irritated as he recalled that dreaded name of those vile redskins. "What of Cecil? Where is he?" He queried the whereabouts of his old friend. Young told him he's on his way to their distant island gathering the Glamour Greens. There were some at Mithril, but the rare plants were incinerated during the invasion. Kain became alarmed while he was describing Rosa's health. "I demand to see her at once. Where has she gone?" "To her bedchamber. I'll show you." Young led Kain the way. The monks and the dragoons stayed behind to avoid a large audience. Looks like not much has changed," he muttered as he looked around the familiar stronghold. Everything did look the same excepting the new decor and furniture at the baby's room. "Rosa is expecting?" "Indeed, but the worst is yet to come." He finally showed him her inactive vessel. The dragoon was, of course, very nervous of her condition. Everyone was so distraught, and no one actually greeted him properly on his return. "Rosa!" His head bent as he noticed she could never respond. Not even his familiar voice or touch would make her stir. "The Glamour Greens..." Wait, is that Young? Yeah. "Glamour Greens are rare medicinal herbs that is said to heal various severe ailments. Cecil hopes to find them within the deep reaches of Tenebre, the Injukhal's domain. He said that Doman is the new chieftain, and the former as well as his daughter have been slewed several months ago. They've been on the hunt for him ever since, as well as plundering our countries." "Intriguing, and most dreadful. He's a fool if he wishes to accomplish this task alone. He never wants more victims to fall prey to their curse." "That is so like him, as valiant yet stubborn as he'll ever be. Once he has something in his mind, there's no stopping him. As long as we have a strong will, they cannot stop us. We must go to Tenebre, under the condition to get ourselves some recruits." But Kain, you've heard what those bastards could do." "And? If Cecil were to be controlled again, what then?" "He has a point, Elder. If anything should happen to him, it's over. Unless we do something. We cannot stay idle here with Rosa like this." The pair hatched a plan. They shortly after passed it along to their countrymen after Kain gave the comatose Rosa a small prayer and a kiss on her head. Brilliant idea, Kain. Yeah, that's the fearless leader we know. Are you sure this could work? I'm worried I'd be blinded by those drums again. You have nothing to fear, comrades. We must concentrate on what matters most. For Cecil, for Rosa, and for the safety of our homeworlds. Kain is right. We should focus on that. Then they cannot touch us. We will assist other nations and let them join our cause. Everyone put their fists and broke away. Sid made the preparations for one of his airships. It wasn't as fast or as strong as the Enterprise, which was a major flaw. Then again, they had no other option. He wished to stay, but of course Kain said it's best for him to stay and be in charge with the kingdom's defenses if anything should go awry. He reluctantly accepted, and the team went north to their first stop at Damcyan. Because Kain was once a part of Golbez's fleet, he wondered what would be of the fire crystal. He heard the elder tell him that the water crystal was stolen during the attack, and the wind crystal was given to Cecil as protection. Kain at first thought that was not a good move. Then again, they couldn't leave it defenseless. Suddenly, they all heard a rumble from below after they passed over the oasis Kaipo. What is that? Thinking it was thunder or perhaps a dust devil. The skies were still clear and the humidity was at its peak. No, it can't be. The Injukhal? As if on cue, their passengers leapt off the deck. No! Young ran and saw them land 50 feet below. Take the wheel! I'll go get 'em! Hurry, Kain! He roared as soon as he grabbed the helm. As jumping was his specialty, he landed elaborately a few feet away from the Wanderers. Wretching fools! Cursed at them, head toward the red men who were barely seen. As Young attempted to land the airship, the noisy routers helped block out the enticing drums while Kain kept on leaping and charging toward each of their brainwashed allies with blinding speed, knocking them back to their senses. Grandmaster took a nosedive, spewing sand all over, but the ship was still operational. The propellers slowed down, and Kain reprimanded the injured men while they were holding their heads. Through the thick fog, a few Injukhal ran up to the duo, ready to taste some blood. You are the Injukhal? I figured as much. Don't get so cocky, Kain. These people could be dangerous. Have they ever dealt with a master monk and a dragoon before? Our people are ill-experienced compared to us. Try as you might, you will never take us in. Bring it on! Drew out his able lance while Young increased his energy as the plunderers charged. They took out their weapons, which were more advanced and durable thanks to the mithril they stole. Their axes gleamed in the scorching sunlight, as did their steel tips of their arrows. They clashed with the dragoon armor, the lance in Young's muscular body, and his claws. Close combat kind of put the two opposing sides at a stalemate. Young and Kain both focused their energy. The Injukhal screeched with their deafening war cries. Vulnerable, they shot them with poison arrows, causing the warriors to slow down. The savages conjured up a few fire spells. With the high temperature, it almost worked to their advantage. Kain and Young managed to heal their ailments by using X potions and remedies. They also dodged a few projectiles. Fully treated, Kain and Young unleashed their ferocity as the dragoon used his deadly jumps and the monk used his massive kicks. Offensively, the Injukhal were decent, but not when it came to defense, wearing those primitive buckskins. The Redskins were down and out, and Kain's armor made him break more of a sweat than Young. Those bastards were a good warm-up, the overconfident dragoon commented. Over a few dunes, they managed to see a few more through the intense glare. When they looked hard enough, thanks to their keen sight, they noticed something orange glistening in one of their palms. The fire crystal! Before they reached them, the Injukhal faded away and took the gem to an unknown location. Damn! It was only a distraction. They took it. They must be heading to Tenebre already. We've no time. Let's move. The monk nodded at the order, and he ran back to the airship. Meanwhile, Cecil was soaring toward Tenebre, but when it was only a couple miles away, he hesitated. I can't land here with the Enterprise. I need to be more discreet if I should get the Glamour Greens. They're expecting me here. He found another smaller island as he was circling around, only this one had a little patch of forest. That's right, he's using a black chocobo. So the Injukhal wouldn't notice him. Last thing he wanted was to get involved in a fight with them. He landed a few feet away and effortlessly hitched a ride. He was lucky that it was able to fly above the open oceans. In the dense vegetation, he descended and marched into dangerous territory. The paladin took a deep breath. There's no turning back from here. I must get the plans for Rosa, even if it should cost my life. Or my mind. A lot of the tribesmen were watching him from the trees, the bushes, and sometimes from the ground. They were masters of camouflage and preparing for an ambush. Bravely fought a few natives which were very similar to the ones he dealt with in Baron. He did cure himself a couple times as he was growing weaker from the constant onslaughts. It was pretty much the same routine, causing a protect, using all his strength and stamina. Though their screeches were a hassle, and so were the poison arrows. He had to use Esna several times as well. Eventually, he had to take a few sundries, which made him open for a short while. He was so grateful the Enterprise always had a large inventory, just like in Part 1, Trials of a King. As he ventured on, he noticed the sun was setting. The sky was turning into a burning shade of orange, and the forest was growing more darker by the second. He couldn't wander around in the dark, as the Aborigines have better perception. So he found a large sequoia, and the underside was perfect for him to sleep in. Pitched up a cottage and crawled inside. He unloaded all his items and armor and rested his heavy head with a sleeping bag. He fell asleep almost instantly after he made a short silent prayer for Rosa to hang in there. By the next morning, Cecil had a quick bite and he resumed his journey. He was wondering where the Glamour Greens would be, and he thought the cave would hold them. The tail collector said he should see some patches of grass that shine and sparkle. It would be the most beautiful, brightest thing you will ever see. He eventually wound up at the coast to the southwest, and he was dreading he would have to swim there. Fortunately, to his surprise, as he followed the sounds and smelled the ocean to a clearing, there was a narrow land path. If he could hurry, the tides won't swallow it up. The moon's gravitational pull affects the tides. Oh, the moon's gravitational pull affects the tides. I hope I'm not too late. Quickly treaded, careful not to trip on the rocky terrain, until a familiar sight greeted him. Cecil ended up in the same cave where he and Rosa first met Dragon Rose. He halted for a few moments, trying to collect his bearings. All those feelings of remorse were creeping back to him. The Rose's fate drove him on. He conjured his energy to fix his eyes where he could find the greens easier. He was using sight throughout the way, and his heart was lifting with confidence. He was certain he'll find them soon enough. In the rear of the cave, he found a dark evergreen patch which he thought were the Glamour Greens. He slowly reached over and touched them, but they crumbled between his fingers. His heart sank as he realized they have already wilted. But it was a trap! There were some ear-piercing cries as he saw 3 red men and 2 condors emerge behind them. He immediately took out his Excalibur and diamond shield, facing the quintet with anger. Where are the Glamour Greens? Like we're gonna tell you, white man. You're only here for one main reason, to serve our chieftain Doman. I will never join with him. I've fallen into your dangerous clutches once. I won't make that same mistake again, not even if it takes a whole tribe to dissuade me. You'll never reach our sacred herbs. They're all dead, just like that patch you plucked. For a brief second, Cecil lost all hope, but his fiery demeanor grew. He shall never dare to believe anything that'll come out of their toxic mouths. Made a fighting stance, and his enemies followed, drawing out their mithril weapons. Cecil encountered the condors first. He used a protect spell, minimized the sharp beaks and talons, and Excalibur was efficient. Made several gashes, they flew away and back toward the paladin. However, he was taking their blows as well. When it was too overwhelming, his body curled and light energy surrounded him. He conjured a holy spell thanks to his beloved's augment, Rosa's love, which is something I made up, by the way, kind of like Anna's love in the game. He didn't realize he had that kind of ability until it was activated inside him. It was as if part of Rosa's essence merged with his. He felt the energy building in him, and he released it through his spread-out palms, startling the red men and dissipating the birds. They charged in with their mithril axes, and he fought them off with a bit of effort. It was fast and ferocious as he dealt with their tomahawks clashing against his sword and armor. It was fortunate that the augment also cured him automatically by the time he was being spent. Their last-ditch effort was using a combined fire spell as each of their hands glowed. He saw the attack before, and suddenly a diamond-shaped force field surrounded him, which is reflect, of course. It bounced back, obliterating their bare bodies. After the battle, he healed himself. He could have sworn Rosa was whispering faintly to him. Rosa? Frantically looked around, and he hadn't seen or heard anything. The augment must have given it to him when they were at the Sylph Cave. That intimate moment. Shook his head, thinking it was only his imagination. Still, why now? Why did he just experience some of his spells being different, more powerful? Is Rosa gone? Before he came up with a heart-wrenching answer, someone applauded him as mysterious red men showed up. He was around his age, looking to be in his early 20s. Unlike the others, he was impressed with Cecil and less hostile. He was wearing a long black cloak with red designs and some of the condor feathers. His hair was all shaved off, showing only rows of little black bumps. He had skin that was a mix of tan with a shade of red, like an African mahogany. Below were moccasins and all that. Bravo, Cecil. That was some great skills you've pulled. Who are you? Relax. I'm not here to do you any harm. I've heard from afar you're a noble knight. The prophecy that our late chieftain Abdullah made to honor you. You know of Chief Abdullah? Indeed, I have. I was one of his loyal subjects. In other words, I'm on your side. Just please put your weapons away. It's making me feel rattled. Oh, forgive me. I was uncertain if I should happen to find the Glamour Greens here. Then, I was ambushed by the Injukhal. They persuaded me to join with Doman, but I refused. Ah, yes, Doman. That treacherous man that enslaved my people. I am one of the last that escaped from his evil tyranny. Cecil grew more relieved after hearing that. I also heard you're looking for those sacred plants. They work wonders if someone should fall ill. The paladin described his predicament to him. Well, isn't it lucky for you? I know where they could be. However, they are incredibly scarce and require a deep search. It's very dangerous here, and I happen to know the way. I will assist you in finding them and fight off whatever rebels we may come across. Thank you. I am most grateful. Cecil was the first to leave the area while the red men stood there for a few moments. At last! I finally have the chosen one within my grasp. My time has come to dominate everything in this world. After using his desperation to look for the so-called Glamour Greens. No matter. He is mine! Made a victory fist before he followed Cecil out. Little did he know that the man helping him was Doman. He didn't notice some of his tribesmen waiting outside. Oh boy, this is not going well. The Injukhal and the Condors fought off against Cecil were inspirations from one of the shows I watched when I was a kid. The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, specifically episode 3 in the Realm of the Condor. They were based off the Inca and those annoying territorial birds of prey. I always despised those things, and I figured they, both the birds and the Injukhal, would make formidable opponents. Song for the battle is, well, the Might of Baron, an overclapped remakes by Audio Fidelity, which is what I've shown before, as well as The Flying Machine by John Reverito. I don't know how to pronounce it, but damn, those were some great songs I found years ago. They're all-time classics, let me tell you. Alright, the voice of Domin, at least how I picture it, could be similar to Sute from Avatar, which, much like him, he's a bona fide warrior and takes no prisoners. That's the guy that could fit him perfectly. And yes, folks, it was Domin working behind the scenes. So what would become of Cecil now? How would Young and Kain save the remaining nations, Troya and Eblon? Well, find out next time. I can't wait to do the next chapter. It is really getting intense. So, I'll see you all next time.